Good morning, and welcome to this edition of You Be the Judge. This morning we have with us a gentleman who you have come to see quite regularly in recent months and weeks, Michael Mills, the president of the Catholic Teachers Union here in the Diocese of Scranton. And this morning we want to have a frank dialogue with Mr. Mills about what has taken place over the course of the last several months concerning the teachers here in the Scranton Diocese and their attempts to have the union recognized as the collective bargaining unit for their interests. Mr. Mills, good morning.
Good morning.
I appreciate you taking time out of your busy calendar these days to come and sit down with us and talk with us. If you would, for those people who may not know who you are and what your position is with the union, can you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm the president of the Scranton Diocese Association of Catholic Teachers. We're the union that has represented organized teachers in the Diocese of Scranton over the last 30 years. Right now, of course, our future is somewhat in question, but that's what the controversy is all about.
Let's talk about your representation over the last 30 years. I know there have been some comments made in the newspapers concerning the fact that the union is only out looking for itself, and in fact, I've even heard some comments that say the leaders of the union are actually the ones looking for themselves.
Sure.
Tell us about the history of the union.
Sure.
And its relationship with the diocese, which I understand is run pretty well over the last 30 years.
We thought so until recently, and to be told otherwise. But yes, we believe we've had excellent relations with the diocese. As I said, we've been around for 30 years. The way the diocese had been set up in the past, we negotiated separately for each school group. Each school had to gain recognition to represent the teachers in a particular school, and then we bargained separate contracts for those schools. We represented at one time 9 of the 10 high schools, and we represented at our high point, I guess, about 15 of the large elementary schools. During that 30-year period, because the contracts ran for varied periods of time, we estimate we negotiated hundreds of contracts, all of which had reached agreement outright except for one contract at one school where there was an 8-day strike in 1981. But I think our batting record would be anything that anybody would be otherwise jealous of, the fact that we did reach agreement in all these other circumstances. So the knock on us has been, from what I understand, that our entire relationship, the 30 years, had been obsessed with nothing other than financial conditions. Of those hundreds of contracts, which ran to 40 pages or better, only 2 dealt with salaries and fringe benefits.
Let's talk about some of the other things that the union dealt with over the 30 years that assisted teachers and, in fact, students alike for those 30 years.
I'm glad to. As a matter of fact, as I said, we had to get recognition school by school. That is, the teachers had to come forward and say, we need a union in this place. And the reason, every single time, had nothing to do with money. It had to do with working conditions. It had to do with job security. It had to do with the feeling of powerlessness that teachers have unless they have somebody that's there as an independent voice to represent their concerns. So, as I said, those other 40-some pages dealt with such things as job security, tenure, a grievance procedure. But it also dealt with what we thought what we were primarily looking to do was to create the most ideal educational climate that we could. We addressed class size, we addressed curriculum, we addressed grading at times, we addressed laboratory safety was a big issue at one of our schools. All of these things were the things that we thought would provide a good learning environment for the kids. So was that good for the teachers? Absolutely, but it was also good for the kids and for the parents who pay the tuition to make sure that those kids get a quality education.
Approximately how many teachers had you represented, let's say in the last 2 or 3 years?
Last 2 or 3 years, because there had been schools that had closed, primarily the elementary schools, I guess our numbers were around 300. And that's out of, I would guess, 650 teachers. We were actually in the minority when it came to numbers under the old setup. Saying that, however, when the diocese restructured the schools and got away from school by school type direction for the schools and went to the consolidated schools, the 4 regional systems, we then went out to reorganize and reshape our own organization, and we had 80% of the teachers in 3 of the systems sign authorization cards, meaning that either those cards would have counted toward or gaining recognition, or certainly would have been an indication that had there been a secret ballot election to determine whether we represented the majority, as I said, we had 80% of the teachers sign the cards.
We're going to take our first break right now. Please come back and join us when we have a further conversation here with Michael Mills, the president of the Catholic Teachers Union.